Hey guys, tonight we begin not with ancient Rome or a Shakespearean stage, but with something far more brutal and beautiful, the death of the American dream in 1970s Hollywood. Because believe it or not, stabbing someone 23 times in a corporate boardroom while calling it liberation is somehow even more tragic than anything Caesar faced on the Ides of March. From studio lots to desert showdowns, from artistic ideals to bloody betrayal, this is a story where everyone believes they're the hero, right up until the moment they realize they're the villain. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and the bloody price of power in the city of dreams. The year is 1976, and Hollywood Boulevard gleams under the California sun like a river of broken dreams and shattered starlight. The palm trees sway in the warm breeze, casting long shadows across the Walk of Fame, where bronze stars embedded in pink terrazzo remind everyone who walks here that immortality comes at a price. The air smells of exhaust fumes, expensive perfume, and ambition. Today the boulevard is packed with people. Thousands of them line the streets, pressing against police barricades, holding homemade signs, screaming and cheering. Young women in bell-bottom jeans and haltered tops stand on their tiptoes, craning their necks. Men in wide-collared shirts and aviator sunglasses jostle for position. Teenagers with long hair and headbands wave their arms frantically. The crowd is electric, buzzing with an energy that feels almost dangerous. They're waiting for Julian Cross. Julian Cross, the man who built Titan Studios from nothing into the most powerful force in American cinema. Julian Cross, who directed 7 consecutive box office smashes. Julian Cross, who just returned from the Cannes Film Festival with the Palme d'Or tucked under his arm like a football trophy. Julian Cross, whose face appears on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "The King of Hollywood." A black Cadillac limousine turns onto Hollywood Boulevard, flanked by motorcycle police. The crowd erupts. The screaming becomes deafening. Camera flashes pop like machine gun fire. A helicopter circles overhead, its blades chopping the air, carrying a news crew that broadcasts this moment to millions of television screens across America. The limousine is impossibly long and impossibly sleek, its chrome bumper catching the sunlight and throwing it back into the faces of the crowd. The windows are tinted dark, mysterious, revealing nothing. As it crawls forward through the sea of people, hands reach out to touch it, as if touching the car might transfer some of its magic, some of its power, some of its success. Inside the limousine, Julian Cross sits in the back seat, smoking a thin cigar. He's 52 years old, but looks 40. His thick black hair is swept back with just a touch of gray at the temples, giving him a distinguished air. He wears a cream-colored suit with a burgundy shirt open at the collar, no tie. Gold rings adorn his fingers. A Rolex Submariner glints on his wrist. His face is tanned, handsome, with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that seem to see everything, miss nothing. Beside him sits Calpurnia Cross, his wife, a former actress who retired at the height of her beauty. She's elegant in a flowing white dress, her blonde hair styled in soft waves, her lips painted a subtle pink. She watches her husband with a mixture of pride and worry. She knows what this adulation means. She knows what happens to men who fly too close to the sun. The limousine stops in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, that iconic temple of cinema with its pagoda roof and dragon columns. The sidewalk here is a shrine where movie stars have pressed their hands and feet into wet cement for decades, creating a permanent record of their existence. Today, Julian Cross will add his own prints to this sacred ground. The driver opens the door. Julian steps out and the crowd loses its mind. The screaming reaches a fever pitch. Photographers surge forward, their cameras clicking in rapid succession, creating a strobe effect that freezes motion into individual frames. Television cameras mounted on shoulders push through the throng, their red recording lights glowing like demon eyes. Julian raises his hand, and somehow, impossibly, the crowd quiets just enough for his voice to carry. "Thank you," he says, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Thank you all for being here. This moment isn't mine alone. It belongs to everyone who believes in the magic of cinema, everyone who understands that movies aren't just entertainment. They're the mythology of our time. We are the new gods, and this is our Mount Olympus." The crowd cheers again, wild and worshipful. But not everyone is cheering. Standing in the doorway of a nearby office building, two studio executives watch the spectacle with sour expressions. Marcus Flavius and Cornelius Morulus have worked in Hollywood for 30 years, grinding their way up through the system, and they've seen men like Julian Cross before. Men who think they're invincible. Men who forget that Hollywood is built on sand, not stone. Flavius is a thin man with a receding hairline and horn-rimmed glasses. He wears a brown polyester suit and a narrow tie, looking every bit the company man. Morulus is shorter, rounder, with a thick mustache and sweat stains under his arms despite the comfortable weather. "Look at them," Flavius mutters, gesturing at the crowd with disgust, fawning over him like he's a damn emperor. Have they forgotten that 6 months ago Marcus Antonius directed the biggest blockbuster of the decade? Have they forgotten that Cassius Longinus has produced more Oscar winners than anyone alive? One trophy from France, and suddenly Julian Cross walks on water. Morulus nods, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. It's not healthy, all this worship. The studio system worked for 50 years because no one man had too much power. Now Cross owns Titan Studios outright. He directs the biggest pictures. He controls distribution. He's negotiating to buy the theater chains. If he succeeds, he'll control everything from production to exhibition. That's not a studio head. That's a monopoly. It's more than that, Flavius says quietly, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. I heard from a source on the board that Cross is planning something big. Something that will change Hollywood forever. And not for the better. They watch as Julian kneels down, pressing his hands into the wet cement while photographers document every second. Calpurnia stands behind him, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The crowd presses closer, held back only by the thin line of security guards in dark suits and sunglasses. Somewhere in that crowd, watching with intense focus, stands Marcus Brutus. Marcus Brutus is 38 years old, and he carries himself with a quiet dignity that sets him apart from the typical Hollywood hustler. He stands at the edge of the crowd, not pushing forward, not reaching out, simply observing. He wears a simple navy blazer over a white turtleneck, his dark hair trimmed conservatively, his clean-shaven face revealing a strong jaw and thoughtful eyes. There's an intelligence about him, a depth that suggests he reads books that don't get turned into screenplays. Brutus is a producer at Titan Studios, Julian Cross's right-hand man, the person everyone knows will inherit the empire when Cross decides to step down. More than that, Brutus is like a son to Julian. Cross mentored him, promoted him, trusted him with the studio's most important projects. Their relationship goes deeper than business. It's familial, built on years of late-night script sessions, shared victories, and mutual respect. But lately, Brutus has been troubled. He watches Julian soaking in the adoration, and something in his stomach twists. This isn't the man he knew 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Julian Cross was a brilliant filmmaker who cared about art, about storytelling, about pushing cinema forward. Now, Julian talks constantly about market share, about monopolies, about crushing the competition. Now, Julian surrounds himself with yes-men and bodyguards. Now, Julian speaks of himself in the third person. A hand touches Brutus's shoulder, and he turns to find Cassius Longinus standing beside him. Cassius is 45, lean and hungry-looking, with hollow cheeks and intense eyes that seem to burn with perpetual dissatisfaction. His hair is dark and greasy, combed straight back. He wears a black leather jacket over a paisley shirt, looking more like a rock promoter than a film producer. But Cassius Longinus has produced 12 Academy Award-winning films, and his instincts for what audiences want are legendary. He's also ambitious, ruthlessly so, and he's been living in Julian Cross's shadow for too long. Quite a show, isn't it? Cassius says, his voice dry and sardonic. The coronation of King Julian. Brutus doesn't respond immediately. He keeps watching the ceremony, watching Julian laugh and wave, watching the crowd worship him. He's earned it, Brutus finally says. Cannes was a triumph. The film is extraordinary. The film, Cassius says slowly, was edited by 6 people, shot by a brilliant cinematographer, and written by someone Julian refuses to credit properly. But Julian takes all the glory. That's how it works with him now. Everything good is his achievement. Everything bad is someone else's failure. Brutus shifts uncomfortably. He doesn't like this kind of talk, especially not in public. Cassius moves closer, lowering his voice so only Brutus can hear over the noise of the crowd. Walk with me. Let's get away from this circus. They move through the crowd, pushing past excited fans and distracted journalists, until they reach a quieter side street. Here, the glamour fades quickly. The buildings are older, shabbier. Graffiti covers a brick wall, advertising a film from 1969. A homeless man sleeps in a doorway, his worldly possessions stuffed into a shopping cart. This is the other Hollywood, the one that doesn't make it into the postcards. Cassius lights a cigarette, taking a long drag before speaking. Tell me honestly, Brutus, when you look at Julian Cross now, do you see the same man who gave you your first producing credit? Do you see the man who used to say that Hollywood's purpose was to illuminate truth, not manufacture illusions? Brutus stops walking. He leans against a wall, staring up at the sky where smog creates a brownish haze that obscures the sun. People change, Brutus says quietly. Success changes people. That's not an answer, Cassius presses. I'm asking what you see. I'm asking what you think about what's happening to this industry we both love. Brutus is silent for a long moment. In the distance, they can still hear the crowd cheering, still hear the helicopter overhead, still feel the pulse of Julian Cross's triumph. I see a man who's forgotten why he started making films, Brutus finally admits. I see a man who talks more about crushing the competition than creating art. I see a man who's buying up every independent theater chain in America so that only Titan Studios films will get proper distribution. I see a man who's become what we used to fight against. Cassius nods slowly, satisfied. And what do you think happens if he succeeds? If Julian Cross controls production, distribution, and exhibition? If every major film in America has to go through him? It would be the death of independent cinema, Brutus says. It would be the end of artistic freedom. It would turn Hollywood into a dictatorship. Exactly, Cassius says, flicking his cigarette into the gutter where it smolders and dies. And here's what you don't know. What Julian hasn't told you yet because he knows you'd object. Next week, he's meeting with the board of directors to propose something he's calling the Titan Initiative. He wants to restructure the studio, consolidate power, eliminate oversight. He wants to make himself president for life with no accountability to shareholders, no checks on his authority. He wants to become untouchable. Brutus feels his blood run cold. That's impossible. The board would never approve it. He's been buying their loyalty for months, Cassius says. Private jets, producer credits on vanity projects, promises of executive positions in his new empire. He's got most of them already. And once he has total control of Titan Studios, he'll use it to strangle every other studio in Hollywood. Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, they'll all bend the knee or be destroyed. Brutus pushes off the wall, pacing now, his mind racing. Everything Cassius is saying aligns with rumors Brutus has heard, with strange meetings Julian has been taking, with the way Julian has been acting lately. Secretive, paranoid, megalomaniacal. Why are you telling me this? Brutus asks. Cassius steps closer, his eyes locked on Brutus's face. Because you're the only one he listens to. You're the only one he trusts. You're the only one who might be able to stop him before he destroys everything we've built. Before Brutus can respond, a commotion erupts from the direction of the Chinese theater. They hear shouting, then the squeal of tires, then more shouting. Cassius and Brutus exchange glances and hurry back toward Hollywood Boulevard. When they arrive, they find chaos. Julian Cross's limousine is pulling away at speed, bodyguards running alongside it. The crowd has scattered, people looking confused and frightened. A television news van has been knocked on its side, its crew scrambling to recover their equipment. Police officers are trying to restore order, their radios crackling with urgent transmissions. Brutus grabs a young production assistant he recognizes from the studio. The kid can't be more than 22, wearing flared jeans and a Titan Studios t-shirt, his long hair tied back in a ponytail. What happened? Brutus demands. The kid's eyes are wide, still processing what he witnessed. It was crazy, man. This old dude, like some street prophet or something, he broke through the crowd, got right up to Mr. Cross, right up in his face, started screaming at him. Screaming what? Something about March 5th, 10th. Kept saying, beware the Ides of March over and over. Said Mr. Cross was going to die on March 5th, 10th if he didn't change his ways. Said Hollywood would run red with blood. The bodyguards dragged him away, but man, Mr. Cross looked spooked. Really spooked. Never seen him look like that before. Cassius laughs, a short, bitter sound. A soothsayer. How perfectly theatrical. Julian probably thinks it's a publicity stunt, but Brutus isn't laughing. He's thinking about dates, about timelines. March 5th, 10th, he mutters. That's less than 3 weeks away. That's when the board meets to vote on his Titan initiative. Exactly, Cassius says quietly. Fate has a sense of timing. They watch as the police lead away a disheveled man in his 60s, wearing a tattered army jacket covered in buttons and patches. His gray hair hangs in matted tangles. His beard is long and unkempt. He's shouting even as they put him in the back of the patrol car, his voice hoarse but determined. The Ides of March. Beware the Ides of March. The crowd begins to disperse, the moment of magic broken by reality. The cement with Julian Cross's handprints sits abandoned, surrounded by velvet ropes and security guards. Someone has already placed a brass plaque. Julian Cross, March 1976. King of Hollywood. Brutus stares at that word, king. I need to think, Brutus says finally. This is too much. You're asking me to consider. He stops, unable to say it out loud. I'm asking you to consider what kind of Hollywood you want to live in, Cassius says. One where art can flourish, where different voices can be heard, where talent matters more than power. Or one where Julian Cross decides what America watches, what stories get told, what dreams get manufactured. A silver Porsche 911 pulls up to the curb, its engine purring like a predatory cat. The driver's side door opens and out steps Decius Brutus. No relation to Marcus, despite the shared surname. Decius is 40, handsome in a slick way, with styled blonde hair, and a three-piece suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He's a studio executive, a deal maker, the kind of man who can smile while stabbing you in the back. Cassius Brutus, Decius says, flashing white teeth. Hell of a scene, wasn't it? Julian really knows how to command attention. Where were you? Cassius asks. I thought you'd be right beside him for the ceremony. Had a meeting in Beverly Hills, Decius says smoothly. Besides, Julian has enough sycophants. He doesn't need me adding to the choir. He looks at Brutus carefully. You look troubled, Marcus. The prophet get to you? Just thinking about the future, Brutus says. Decius nods knowingly. The future. Yes, that's what we all need to think about. The future Julian Cross is building for us, whether we want that future or not. He glances around, making sure no one is listening. There's a gathering tonight. My house in Laurel Canyon. 8 o'clock. Small group. People who care about the industry. People who understand that difficult times require difficult conversations. You should come. What kind of gathering? Brutus asks, though he already knows. The kind where we stop pretending everything is fine, Decius says simply. The kind where we acknowledge that Julian Cross has become dangerous, and we discuss what can be done about it before it's too late. Brutus feels the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He looks at Cassius, who's watching him intently. He looks at Decius, who wears an expression of casual conspiracy. He looks back toward the Chinese theater, where workers are already cleaning up, erasing the evidence of the day's drama. Somewhere in the Hollywood Hills, Julian Cross sits in his mansion, probably already forgetting about the prophet's warning, already planning his next move in the chess game of power. Julian, who was once Brutus's mentor, his friend, his second father. Julian, who gave him everything he has in this industry. Julian, who has become something monstrous. I'll think about it, Brutus says finally. Don't think too long, Cassius warns. The Ides of March are coming fast, and if we don't act, Julian Cross will own all of us. our careers, our futures, our souls. He'll turn Hollywood into his personal kingdom, and we'll all be serfs in his empire. Decius climbs back into his Porsche. 8 o'clock, 1720 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. The house with the iron gates and the cypress trees. Come alone. He revs the engine and pulls away, leaving the smell of expensive gasoline hanging in the air. Brutus stands on the sidewalk, caught between loyalty and principle, between the past and the future, between the man Julian Cross was and the tyrant he's becoming. The sun is setting now, painting the Hollywood hills in shades of orange and purple and red. The palm trees stand like sentinels against the darkening sky. Somewhere a siren wails. Somewhere a director yells, "Cut!" Somewhere the machinery of dreams grinds on. And Marcus Brutus must decide which side of history he wants to stand on. The weight of that decision settles on his shoulders like a leaden cloak as he walks alone through the streets of Hollywood, the kingdom that Julian Cross is determined to rule or ruin. The Cross Mansion sits high in the Hollywood hills, like a modern fortress overlooking the city of dreams below. It's a sprawling structure of glass and white concrete, designed by a famous architect in the international style, all clean lines and geometric precision. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer panoramic views of Los Angeles spreading out toward the Pacific Ocean, a glittering carpet of lights that stretches to the horizon. The infinity pool seems to merge with the city lights, creating the illusion that the house floats in space above everything and everyone. It's 2 o'clock in the morning on March 14th, 1976, and Julian Cross cannot sleep. He stands on the balcony outside the master bedroom, wearing a burgundy silk robe, a glass of cognac in his hand. The night air is cool but not cold, carrying the scent of jasmine from the gardens below. In the distance, the Hollywood sign glows white against the dark hillside, those 9 letters that promise everything and deliver only what you're strong enough to take. Julian takes a sip of cognac, feeling the burn, enjoying it. He thinks about tomorrow. Tomorrow, the board meeting. Tomorrow, the vote on his Titan initiative. Tomorrow, he consolidates absolute power and becomes truly untouchable. No more shareholders questioning his decisions. No more board members second-guessing his vision. No more committee approvals or budget restrictions. Just him, his will, his empire. He spent 18 months planning this, calling in favors, making promises, eliminating opposition. He's bought loyalty where he could and destroyed those who wouldn't be bought. 3 board members who spoke against him found themselves suddenly unemployed, their reputations mysteriously destroyed by rumors of embezzlement or sexual harassment. 2 others received producer credits on films they never worked on and beach houses in Malibu they couldn't afford. The mathematics of power are simple. Reward your allies, crush your enemies, and never show weakness. Behind him, through the open door, he hears movement in the bedroom. Calpurnia is awake. He turns and walks back inside. The bedroom is enormous, decorated in whites and creams with accents of gold. A California king-size bed dominates the space, its silk sheets tangled. Modern art hangs on the walls, abstract paintings worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. A Warhol print of Marilyn Monroe watches from above the fireplace with her sad, knowing eyes. Calpurnia sits up in bed, her blonde hair disheveled, her face pale. She's 45 years old and still beautiful, But there's a haunted quality to her beauty now, a sadness that no amount of makeup can hide. She wears a white silk nightgown, and in the dim light she looks almost ghostly. "Julian," she says, her voice trembling, "I had a dream." He sits on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. "It's just a dream, Cal. Go back to sleep." "No," she insists, gripping his hand tightly. "It was more than a dream. It was a warning." "A vision," Julian sighs. Calpurnia has always been superstitious, always reading horoscopes, consulting psychics, believing in omens. It's one of the things that drove them apart over the years. Her mysticism versus his pragmatism. They sleep in the same bed but live in different worlds. "Tell me," he says, humoring her. Calpurnia's eyes fill with tears. "I dreamed I was at Titan Studios, in the main building, in your office. But it wasn't your office anymore. It was a tomb. The walls were covered in blood. Your blood. I saw you lying on the floor, and there were people standing over you. People I knew. People you trusted. They had knives, Julian. Their hands were red. It's just anxiety," Julian says, squeezing her hand. "You're worried about the board meeting. That's all this is." "No," Calpurnia says firmly. "It's a warning. After what happened yesterday with that prophet, after he warned you about the Ides of March, that crazy homeless man," Julian interrupts, "probably off his medication. The Ides of March is today," Calpurnia continues. "March 15th. The board meeting is today. You can't go, Julian? Please, postpone it. Wait a week, a month. Stay home today." Julian stands, walking to the bar cart where he refills his cognac glass. "I'm not postponing anything. I've worked too hard, planned too carefully. The votes are lined up. Everything is in place. I'm not going to let some street lunatic and a bad dream derail the most important day of my career." "It's not about your career," Calpurnia pleads. "It's about your life. I'm begging you, Julian. I have a terrible feeling. Something is wrong. Something is going to happen." He turns to face her, and for a moment his expression softens. He sees the woman he married 20 years ago, the starlet with dreams of Oscar glory, who gave up her career to be his wife. She sacrificed everything for him, and what did he give her in return? A mansion she lives in alone while he works 18-hour days. Jewelry that can't replace affection. A last name that carries weight but no warmth. "Nothing is going to happen," he says gently. "I have security. I have bodyguards. I'm surrounded by people who owe their careers to me. I'm untouchable, Cal. No one would dare move against me." "Pride," Calpurnia whispers. "That's what your Greek tragedies are always about, aren't they? The hero's pride blinds him to the danger. The hero thinks he's invincible until the moment the knife enters his back." Julian's expression hardens again. "This isn't a Greek tragedy. This is Hollywood, 1976, and I'm not a tragic hero. I'm a man who understood how power works and had the courage to take it. Now get some sleep. I need to be sharp tomorrow." He walks toward the door that leads to his private study. "Where are you going?" Calpurnia asks. "To work? To prepare? To make sure nothing goes wrong." "Everything is already wrong," she says quietly to his retreating back. "You've just forgotten how to see it." But Julian Cross doesn't hear her. He's already in his study, surrounded by scripts and contracts and plans for empire, his mind focused on tomorrow's triumph, completely blind to tomorrow's betrayal. 1720 Laurel Canyon Boulevard is hidden behind iron gates and tall cypress trees that block it from the street. Decius Brutus's house is a mid-century modern masterpiece, all exposed beams and stone fireplaces, with walls of glass that look out onto a terraced garden where bougainvillea climbs wooden trellises in explosions of purple and pink. Inside, the furniture is Danish modern, expensive, and uncomfortable. Abstract sculptures stand in corners like silent witnesses. The air smells of cigarette smoke and expensive scotch. It's 9 o'clock at night, and Marcus Brutus sits in a leather chair, surrounded by conspirators. They're all here. Cassius Longinus paces by the window, his nervous energy filling the room. Decius Brutus stands by the bar, playing host, keeping everyone's glasses filled. Casca is a heavy-set director with a thick beard and tired eyes, wearing a denim jacket and boots. Cinna is a young screenwriter, idealistic and angry, with wire-rimmed glasses and shoulder-length hair. Metellus Kinber is a cinematographer, methodical and precise, his gray hair cut military short. Trebonius is a veteran producer, 60 years old, who remembers when Hollywood had integrity. And there's Ligurus, a former studio head who Julian Cross destroyed 2 years ago over a creative disagreement. Ligurius is sick now, cancer eating away at him, his face gaunt, his skin yellow. But his eyes burn with hatred for Julian Cross, and that hatred keeps him alive. They've been talking for hours, going in circles, everyone agreeing that something must be done, but no one willing to say exactly what that something is. Marcus Brutus has been mostly silent, listening, thinking, wrestling with demons only he can see. Cassius finally stops pacing and turns to face the group. Enough dancing around it. We all know why we're here. Julian Cross has become a tyrant. Tomorrow he'll become an unstoppable tyrant. The board will give him everything he wants because he's bought their votes or scared them into submission. Once he has absolute power over Titan Studios, he'll use it to crush every independent voice in Hollywood. We'll all be working for him or not working at all. So what are you proposing? Brutus asks quietly, though he already knows the answer. Cassius looks directly at him. I'm proposing we stop him tomorrow at the board meeting. Stop him how? Cinna asks, leaning forward. We can't outvote him. We can't outmaneuver him politically. He's too powerful. There's only one way to stop a man who won't listen to reason, Casca says, his voice rough as gravel. You remove him. Permanently. The word hangs in the air like gun smoke. You're talking about murder, Brutus says, the word feeling foreign in his mouth. I'm talking about sacrifice, Cassius corrects. I'm talking about saving Hollywood from a dictator. This isn't about personal vendetta. This is about the future of cinema itself. If Julian Cross consolidates power tomorrow, independent filmmaking dies, small studios close, artistic voices are silenced, every movie becomes a product manufactured by the Titan machine. Decius refills glasses, his movements smooth and practiced. Marcus, think about what Julian has become. Remember when you first met him? He was a rebel, a maverick who fought against the studio system. Now he wants to be the studio system. He's become everything he once despised. Power corrupts, Trebonius adds, his voice heavy with years of experience. I've seen it happen 100 times. Good men become monsters when they taste absolute control. Julian isn't the man who mentored you anymore, Marcus. That man is dead. What's left is just ambition wearing his face. Ligurius coughs, a wet rattling sound, and when he speaks his voice is weak but determined. He destroyed me, blacklisted me, spread lies about me. Took away everything I built in 40 years because I disagreed with one of his casting decisions. One disagreement, and he erased my career like I never existed. If he did that to me, imagine what he'll do with absolute power. Marcus Brutus stands and walks to the window. Below, Los Angeles spreads out in its grid of lights, millions of people living their lives, going to movies, dreaming dreams that Hollywood manufactures and sells back to them. What responsibility does he have to those people? What responsibility does he have to the art form he loves? And what responsibility does he have to Julian Cross, the man who gave him everything? There has to be another way, Brutus says. We could expose his plans to the media. We could organize the board members who still have integrity. We could. There is no other way, Cassius interrupts, moving to stand beside him. We've tried reasoning with him. We've tried opposing him through proper channels. He owns the media. He controls the board. He's made himself untouchable through conventional means. So we must use unconventional means. You mean violence, Brutus says. I mean justice, Cassius counters. Is it violence to stop a tyrant? Is it murder to kill a man who's killing an entire industry? Throughout history, when democracy fails, when all peaceful options are exhausted, good men have had to make terrible choices to preserve freedom. This is one of those moments. Brutus turns to face the group. 7 men watching him, waiting for his decision. He knows why they need him. He's Julian's protégé, his trusted lieutenant. He has access where others don't. He's the key to getting close enough to strike. If we do this, Brutus says slowly, it can't be an assassination. It can't be murder for personal gain. It has to be a sacrifice for the greater good. We're not killers. We're liberators. Cassius nods eagerly. Exactly. This is about saving Hollywood, not destroying a man. And it has to be quick, Brutus continues, his voice growing stronger as he convinces himself. No torture, no suffering. A clean death for a man who's already dead inside. We'll be putting down the tyrant but honoring the artist he once was. Then you're with us? Decius asks. Marcus Brutus closes his eyes. He sees Julian Cross as he was 10 years ago, passionate about filmmaking, generous with advice, laughing over late-night Thai food while they edited a rough cut together. He sees the mentor, the friend, the father figure. Then he opens his eyes and sees the future Julian Cross is building. A Hollywood without freedom, without diversity, without soul. I'm with you, Brutus says, and the words feel like a death sentence for his own soul. Tomorrow, at the board meeting, we end this. The conspirators exchange glances of relief and grim determination. They've crossed the Rubicon now. There's no going back. They spend the next 2 hours planning every detail. Cassius spreads a blueprint of the Titan Studios executive building across the coffee table. The board meeting will take place in the penthouse conference room on the 20th floor, a space with panoramic windows and a long mahogany table that seats 20. Julian always sits at the head, his back to the windows, silhouetted against the Los Angeles skyline like a king on his throne. The meeting is scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Security will be tight, but they all have legitimate reasons to be there. Cassius and Brutus are board members. Decius is Julian's personal assistant and will escort him into the building. Casca, Cinna, Metellus, Trebonius, and Ligurius will pose as producers bringing contracts for Julian to sign before the meeting, a common occurrence. We can't use guns, Cassius says, tracing the conference room layout with his finger. Too loud? Too messy? Too obvious? It has to look like a passionate confrontation that went wrong, not a premeditated execution. Knives, Casca says simply. Close, personal, quick. We surround him, and we strike before his bodyguards can react. Brutus feels sick. The abstract concept of stopping Julian Cross is one thing. The concrete reality of stabbing him to death is something else entirely. His bodyguards wait outside the conference room, Decius explains. Julian insists on privacy during board meetings. Once we're inside and the doors are closed, we'll have maybe 2 minutes before they realize something's wrong and break through. 2 minutes is more than enough, Casca says grimly. Metellus pulls out 7 matching pocket knives, laying them on the table like surgical instruments. They're beautiful in a terrible way, with ivory handles and folded steel blades, the kind of knives that executives use to open expensive cigars or letters sealed with wax. The kind of knives that don't look like weapons until they are. Each man takes one. The weight of it in Brutus's palm feels like the weight of damnation. Tomorrow at 2:30 we converge on Titan Studios, Cassius says. Act normal. Act like it's just another day. Decius, you pick up Julian at his house at 2 o'clock. Tell him the board is eager to vote, that everything is going smoothly. Keep him calm and confident. And after? Cinna asks. After it's done, what happens? We address the board immediately, Brutus says, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his soul. We explain why it had to be done. We make them understand that we saved the studio, saved the industry. Then we call a press conference and tell the same story to the world. We're not assassins. We're liberators. The narrative has to be clear from the first moment. The narrative, Trebonius repeats thoughtfully. Yes, history is written by those who control the story. We have to make sure everyone understands this was an act of patriotism, not murder. They continue planning until midnight, working out every detail, every contingency, every possible complication. When they finally disperse into the night, each man carries the weight of what's to come. They drive their separate ways through the empty streets of Los Angeles, past sleeping houses and closed studios, past the dreams that Hollywood manufactures and the nightmares it hides. Marcus Brutus drives home to his apartment in West Hollywood, a modest 2-bedroom place that he's never bothered to properly furnish despite his producer's salary. He unlocks the door and steps inside, and the lights are on. His wife, Portia, sits on the couch waiting for him. She's 35, elegant and intelligent, with dark hair pulled back in a simple style and eyes that see too much. She wears a cream-colored pantsuit, and she's been crying. Wadded tissues lie scattered on the coffee table beside an untouched glass of wine. "Where have you been?" she asks, though her tone suggests she already knows. Brutus closes the door carefully, buying time to think. Meeting. Studio business. "Don't lie to me, Marcus," Portia says, standing. "I'm your wife. I know you better than anyone. I've watched you these past weeks, withdrawing, brooding, carrying some terrible weight. I've watched you come home late with the smell of cigarettes and conspiracy on your clothes. I've watched you die a little more each day." He starts to protest, but she raises her hand. "Whatever you're planning with Cassius and the others, whatever you're going to do tomorrow, I want you to know something." She walks to him, taking his face in her hands. "I love you. I've always loved you. And I'm terrified that whatever choice you're about to make will destroy you from the inside out." Tears spilled down Brutus's cheeks. He hasn't cried in years, but suddenly he can't stop. He's become a monster, Portia. Julian has become everything we fought against. If I do nothing, I'm complicit. If I act, I'm a murderer. Either way, I'm damned. Then choose the damnation you can live with, Portia whispers. Choose the man you want to see in the mirror. And know that whatever you choose, I'll be here. I'll stand beside you through the consequences. They hold each other in the dim apartment, two people clinging to love in a city built on illusions, knowing that tomorrow will change everything. That innocence once lost can never be recovered. The night passes slowly. Brutus doesn't sleep. He sits by the window and watches the sky gradually lighten from black to gray to pink. The sun rises over Los Angeles on March 15th, 1976, the Ides of March, the day that will either save Hollywood or condemn it. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Brutus showers and dresses carefully. He chooses a dark suit, a white shirt, a burgundy tie. He looks at himself in the mirror and barely recognizes the man staring back. When did he become this person? When did the idealistic young producer who believed in art transform into a conspirator preparing for murder? He picks up the ivory-handled knife from his dresser. It fits perfectly in his inside jacket pocket, invisible but present, a secret weight against his heart. Portia kisses him goodbye at the door. She doesn't say, "Don't do it." She doesn't say, "I'll support you." She simply kisses him and holds him and lets him go, because some choices a man must make alone. Marcus Brutus drives through the morning traffic toward Titan Studios, where destiny and betrayal wait in a 20th floor conference room, where Julian Cross will arrive expecting triumph and find only steel and blood and the end of empire. The die is cast, the knives are sharpened. The Ides of March have come at last. Titan Studios sprawls across 40 acres in Burbank, a city within a city, a dream factory that never sleeps. Sound stages the size of aircraft hangars stand in rows like military barracks. Backlot streets recreate New York, Paris, ancient Rome, the Old West. A water tank large enough to film naval battles reflects the cloudless California sky. Golf carts shuttle executives and actors between buildings. The air hums with the sound of construction, of filming, of commerce disguised as art. At the center of it all rises the Titan Tower, a 20-story monument to Julian Cross's vision. All glass and steel and ambition reaching toward the sun. The lobby features a 3-story waterfall and marble floors polished to mirror brightness. Movie posters line the walls, chronicling decades of Titan Studios productions, from the golden age of Hollywood through the cynical present. A bronze statue of the Greek Titan Atlas stands in the center, holding up the world, his face suspiciously resembling Julian Cross. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Decius Brutus arrives at the Cross mansion in his silver Porsche. The security gate opens automatically, recognizing his car. He drives up the winding driveway, past manicured lawns and marble fountains, to the main entrance where Julian Cross waits. Julian looks sharp today, dressed in a charcoal 3-piece suit with a crimson tie and matching pocket square. His hair is perfectly styled, his shoes are polished to a high shine. He carries a leather briefcase containing the Titan Initiative documents, the papers that will make him Emperor of Hollywood. He looks like a man about to win everything. Calpurnia stands in the doorway behind him, her face pale and drawn. She didn't sleep last night. The nightmares kept coming, each one more vivid than the last. She begged Julian all morning to postpone the meeting, to wait just one more day. But he refused. He's waited 18 months for this moment. He won't wait another second. Ready to make history? Decius asks, flashing his practiced smile as Julian slides into the passenger seat. I was born ready, Julian replies, settling back into the leather upholstery. How's the mood at the studio? Electric, Decius lies smoothly. The board is eager to vote. Several members have already arrived. Everyone knows this is a watershed moment for Titan Studios. As they pull away, Julian glances back at the mansion. Calpurnia stands framed in the doorway, and for just a moment he feels something twist in his chest. Doubt? Fear? Regret? But he pushes it down, buries it beneath layers of confidence and determination. He didn't build an empire by listening to superstitious fears. Did you hear about the crazy prophet yesterday? Julian asks as they wind down through the Hollywood hills. The one screaming about the Ides of March? I heard, Decius says carefully. Just some disturbed homeless man. They get them all the time on Hollywood Boulevard. Calpurnia thinks it was an omen, Julian says with a slight laugh. She wanted me to cancel today's meeting. Can you imagine? Cancel the most important day of my career because of a lunatic and a bad dream? Well, Decius says, navigating through traffic, the Ides of March is here, and you're still alive. So much for prophecies. Julian laughs again, louder this time. Exactly. Superstition is for people who can't control their own destiny. I make my own fate. They drive through Burbank, past strip malls and palm trees, past the Warner Brothers lot and the Disney Studios, past all of Julian's competitors, who will soon bow to his supremacy. The Porsche's engine purrs with German precision. The radio plays the Eagles' Take It to the Limit. The California sun beats down from a perfect blue sky. It's the kind of day when everything seems possible. At 2:40, they arrive at Titan Studios. The guard at the gate waves them through with a respectful salute. Decius parks in Julian's reserved spot, right by the entrance to Titan Tower. As they walk toward the building, people stop and stare. Secretaries, executives, grips, gaffers, everyone watches Julian Cross pass. Some with admiration, some with fear, some with hatred, barely concealed behind professional smiles. The elevator ride to the 20th floor is smooth and silent. Muzak plays a string version of Stairway to Heaven. Julian checks his reflection in the polished brass doors, adjusting his tie. He looks perfect. He feels invincible. The elevator doors open onto the executive floor, where thick carpet muffles footsteps and original artwork decorates the walls. Julian's 2 bodyguards wait by the conference room doors, large men in dark suits with earpieces and bulges under their jackets, where guns nestle in shoulder holsters. Mr. Cross, one of them nods. Everything secure? Julian asks. Yes, sir. The board members are inside. A few producers asked to see you before the meeting. They're waiting with contracts for your signature. Let them wait a few more minutes, Julian says. I want to review my notes first, but Decius touches his arm. Actually, Julian, you might want to see them now. It's the Metellus Kimber project. He needs your approval to start shooting next week. If you don't sign today, they'll miss their location window. Julian checks his watch. 2:50. The meeting starts at 3. Fine, send them in first. But make it quick. The bodyguards open the heavy oak doors, and Julian Cross walks into the conference room where 7 men wait with knives and conviction, where destiny has set its trap, where the king of Hollywood will learn that every throne is built on quicksand, and every empire eventually falls. The conference room is all dark wood and leather, with windows offering a panoramic view of Los Angeles stretching to the hazy mountains beyond. The long mahogany table is polished to a mirror shine. Leather executive chairs surround it like thrones at a medieval round table. Abstract paintings hang on the walls, expensive, meaningless splashes of color that cost more than most people earn in a year. The conspirators stand in a loose semicircle near the windows. Cassius, Casca, Cinna, Metellus, Cimber, Trebonius, Ligurius, and at the center, Marcus Brutus, TH in their pockets. They all wear suits, all look professional, all carry D. Julian enters with Decius behind him, and for just a moment, Brutus sees a flash of suspicion cross Julian's face. Something about the configuration of people, something about the energy in the room, triggers an ancient survival instinct buried deep in the human brain. But then Metellus Cimber steps forward with a folder of contracts, smiling his professional smile, and the moment passes. "Julian, thank you for seeing us," Metellus says, opening the folder. "I just need your signature on the location agreements. We're shooting in Griffith Park starting Monday, and the permits need, where's Marcus Antonius?" Julian interrupts, looking around the room. "He's supposed to be here for the board meeting." "Running late," Decius says smoothly. "Traffic on the 101. He'll be here any minute." This is a lie. Trebonius was tasked with delaying Marcus Antonius, Julian's most loyal supporter, the man who would die defending him. Trebonius intercepted him downstairs with an invented emergency about a film going over budget, keeping him occupied in another office while history unfolds 20 floors above. Julian walks to the head of the table, setting down his briefcase. The windows frame him perfectly, the city behind him, the sun creating a halo effect around his silhouette. He looks like a god untouchable and eternal. "Let me see the contracts," Julian says, reaching for the folder, and that's when Metellus drops it. The papers scatter across the floor like fallen leaves, and as Julian instinctively bends to help gather them, Metellus drops to his knees. But he's not reaching for papers. He's reaching for Julian's arm, gripping it, holding it. "What the hell are you doing?" Julian tries to pull away, confusion replacing confidence on his face. "Forgiveness," Metellus says, and his voice breaks with emotion. "I'm begging for forgiveness. My brother, the director you blacklisted, the man whose career you destroyed, I'm begging you to restore him. Give him another chance. Show mercy." "Let go of me," Julian says, his voice hardening with anger. "Your brother was a hack who went over budget and behind schedule. I gave him 3 chances. He squandered them all. Now let go." But Metellus doesn't let go. He holds tighter, and suddenly the other conspirators are moving, closing the circle, and Julian understands. His eyes widen. He looks at each face in turn: Cassius with his burning intensity, Casca with his grim determination, Cinna with his righteous anger, Trebonius with his bitter disappointment, Ligurius with his hatred, Decius with his betrayal, and finally Marcus Brutus. "Marcus?" Julian's voice is almost pleading. "Marcus, what is this?" Brutus can't speak. His throat has closed. The knife in his pocket weighs 1,000 pounds. "This is justice," Cassius says, and his hand emerges from his jacket, holding the ivory-handled blade. "No," Julian starts, but Casca strikes first. The knife enters Julian's shoulder, and he cries out, a sound of shock and pain and disbelief. He stumbles backward, blood spreading across his charcoal suit like spilled wine. He reaches for his shoulder, his hand coming away red. "You're insane," Julian gasps. "All of you, you're destroying everything." But they're on him now, a pack of wolves bringing down a lion. Cassius strikes from the left, the blade finding Julian's side. Prayer. Cinna from the right, cutting across his arm. Metellus again, this time in the back. Each strike is accompanied by a justification shouted like a "for the independent studios you crushed." Casca, "for the artists you silenced." Cinna, "for the monopoly you built." Cassius, "for the democracy you destroyed." Metellus. Julian fights back with surprising strength, throwing wild punches, knocking Ligurus to the floor, but there are too many of them. He's bleeding from a dozen wounds now, his perfect suit in tatters, his invincibility shattered by steel and betrayal. He staggers toward the door, toward escape, toward his bodyguards just beyond the oak barrier. But Brutus steps into his path. Their eyes meet. In Julian's eyes, Brutus sees confusion, hurt, betrayal, and finally, understanding. In this moment, Julian Cross understands what he's become, understands why this is happening, understands that empires built on fear and power always end this way. "Et tu, Marcus?" Julian whispers, blood on his lips. "You too?" The phrase hangs between them. Latin words that Julian taught Brutus years ago when they were studying Shakespeare together, when they were mentor and student, when they were friends. Words from a different assassination, from a different betrayal, from a play about the dangers of ambition. Marcus Brutus draws his knife. His hand trembles. Tears stream down his face. But his voice is steady when he speaks. "For the Hollywood you could have been," Brutus says. "For the man you used to be." And he strikes. The blade enters Julian Cross's chest, just below the ribs, angled upward toward the heart. Julian's eyes go wide. He gasps a wet, rattling sound. His knees buckle. He falls slowly, gracefully, like an actor hitting his mark for the final scene. He crumples to the carpet, blood pooling around him, staining the expensive wool burgundy and black. The conspirators stand in a circle around his body, breathing hard, their hands red, their souls black. Julian Cross, king of Hollywood, emperor of Titan Studios, the man who was going to own the dream factory, lies dead at their feet. Outside, oblivious Los Angeles continues its eternal pursuit of fame and fortune, unaware that everything has just changed. For a long moment, no one moves. They stand frozen like a tableau in a wax museum. 7 men in blood-soaked suits surrounding a corpse, knives still in their hands, the magnitude of what they've done slowly registering in their consciousness. Cassius is the first to speak, his voice shaking, but defiant. "It's done. We're free. Hollywood is free. We need to wash," Casca says, looking at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. The blood is already drying, turning from bright red to dark rust. "We need to—" "No," Brutus interrupts, dropping to his knees beside Julian's body. He closes Julian's eyes with gentle fingers, a final act of mercy. "We don't wash. We don't hide. We go out there covered in blood, and we tell them why. We tell them this was necessary. We tell them we're liberators, not murderers." "Liberators," Senna repeats, testing the word. "Yes, that's what we are." Outside they hear pounding on the door. The bodyguards, finally alerted by the sounds of struggle, are trying to break through. The heavy oak holds for now, but it won't last long. "The board members," Decius says urgently. "They're in the adjacent conference room. We need to address them before security locks down the building." We need to control the narrative. Brutus stands, forcing himself to look at each conspirator. Remember why we did this. Not for personal gain, not for revenge, for the future of cinema, for freedom, for art. That's the story we tell. That's the truth we believe. Trebonius nods, wiping blood from his knife onto his pants. And Marcus Antonius, he'll want revenge. Let me handle Antonius, Brutus says. He's passionate, but he's not stupid. Once we explain what Julian had become, once we show him the evidence of Julian's plans for total control, he'll understand. The door finally splinters. The bodyguards burst in, guns drawn, and then freeze at the scene before them. Julian Cross, their employer, their responsibility, lies dead in a spreading pool of blood. 7 men stand around him, covered in gore, looking less like assassins and more like priests who've performed some terrible necessary ritual. Drop the knives. One bodyguard shouts, his gun trained on Cassius. No need for weapons, Brutus says calmly, setting his knife on the conference table. The others follow suit, 7 ivory-handled blades clicking against mahogany. We're not running. We're not resisting. We're going to explain to the board what happened here and why. You murdered him, the bodyguard says, disbelief in his voice. You killed Julian Cross. We executed a tyrant, Cassius corrects. There's a difference. Before the situation can escalate, voices echo from the hallway. The board members, hearing the commotion, have emerged from their meeting room. Corporate executives in expensive suits, clutching leather portfolios, gather in the doorway, staring at the carnage. And then Marcus Antonius arrives. He pushes through the crowd like a hurricane, his tall frame towering over the others. Marcus Antonius is 45, built like a linebacker, with thick black hair styled in a pompadour and a mustache that would make Burt Reynolds jealous. He wears a brown leather jacket over an orange turtleneck, gold chains around his neck, platform shoes adding 2 inches to his already impressive height. He's Julian's best friend, his most loyal ally, the man who directed Titan Studios' biggest hits. He sees Julian's body and stops as if he's walked into a wall. No, Antonius whispers. Then louder, no, Julian. No, no, no. He rushes to the body, dropping to his knees, cradling Julian's head in his lap. Blood soaks into his jeans. Tears stream down his face, cutting rivers through the thick stubble on his cheeks. Who did this? Antonius roars, his grief transforming instantly into rage. Who killed him? We did, Brutus says quietly, stepping forward. All of us, together. Antonius looks up, his eyes burning with hatred. You, Marcus Brutus, he loved you like a son. He trusted you with everything. And you stabbed him? I loved him too, Brutus says, his voice breaking. But I loved Hollywood more. I loved what we could be more than what he was making us become. Julian was going to destroy everything, Marcus. The Titan Initiative was going to make us the most powerful studio in history. Antonius shouts, was going to ensure our survival in a changing industry, and you murdered him for it. He was going to become a dictator, Cassius interjects. He was going to control every aspect of filmmaking in America. No competition, no dissent, no freedom. Freedom? Antonius laughs bitterly, still holding Julian's body. You talk to me about freedom while standing over my best friend's corpse. You butchered him like an animal, and you call it liberation? Brutus kneels beside Antonius, trying to make him understand. If you look at the documents in his briefcase, if you read the Titan Initiative, you'll see what he planned. Total control, absolute power. The death of independent cinema, I don't care about documents, Antonius says coldly. I care about loyalty. I care about honor. Things you obviously know nothing about. He gently lowers Julian's head to the carpet and stands towering over the conspirators. You want to explain yourselves to the board? Fine. Explain. Tell them your story about tyranny and freedom. Make them understand why you committed murder in a corporate conference room. We will, Brutus says, and they'll see we had no choice. Then I'll speak too, Antonius says, his voice dropping to something dangerous and quiet. After you've had your say, I'll have mine, and we'll see whose version of events the world believes. The noble liberators covered in blood, or the grieving friend demanding justice? He looks at each conspirator in turn, memorizing faces, cataloging betrayals. You've made a mistake, all of you. You think killing Julian Cross ends this? It's just beginning. His empire doesn't die with him. His vision doesn't disappear because you put knives in his back. There are millions of people who loved him, who believed in him, who will demand vengeance. Then let them come, Cassius says defiantly. We're ready to defend what we've done. Good, Antonius says, backing toward the door, because I'm going to make sure they come. I'm going to tell the world what you are. Not heroes, not liberators. Just murderers who killed a great man because you were jealous of his success. He turns and walks through the crowd, leaving bloody footprints on the expensive carpet, leaving the conspirators standing in the ruins of their victory, beginning to realize that killing Julian Cross might have been the easy part. The hard part comes next. The news spreads through Hollywood like wildfire through dry brush. Within 20 minutes, every radio station in Los Angeles interrupts regular programming with bulletins. Within an hour, television networks break into their afternoon soap operas with special reports. By evening, it's the only story in America. Julian Cross, legendary filmmaker and head of Titan Studios, was murdered today in his own conference room by a group of executives and producers, including his protégé Marcus Brutus. The assassins claim they acted to prevent Cross from becoming a monopolistic dictator of the film industry. The footage plays on endless loop, the Titan Tower surrounded by police cars, their red and blue lights flashing, ambulances, news vans, helicopters circling overhead, reporters shouting questions at shell-shocked employees leaving the building, and then the money shot that every network keeps replaying. Marcus Brutus and the other conspirators being led out in handcuffs, their expensive suits covered in blood, their faces grim but defiant. Brutus had wanted to address the board, to explain their actions, to make everyone understand the righteousness of their cause. But the Los Angeles Police Department had other ideas. This was murder, plain and simple, and no amount of political justification changes the fact that 7 men stabbed another man 23 times in a corporate conference room. They're arrested, read their rights, photographed, fingerprinted, processed like common criminals. But this isn't a common crime, and they're not common criminals. Within 6 hours, they're released on bail, thanks to expensive lawyers and their status as Hollywood royalty. The district attorney is already getting pressure from above, from the mayor's office, from the governor, from powerful people who understand that this case is about more than murder. It's about the future of an entire industry. The bail hearing becomes a media circus. Reporters pack the courthouse steps, shoving microphones at anyone who emerges. Public opinion is fractured, confused, angry. Some people call the conspirators heroes who stopped a corporate tyrant. Others call them jealous murderers who killed a genius. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone takes a side. But the real battle isn't being fought in courtrooms or newspapers. It's being fought in the court of public opinion. And Marcus Antonius is about to become a master strategist. 3 days after the assassination, Antonius organizes Julian Cross's funeral. It's held at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, that famous boneyard where legends like Rudolph Valentino and Douglas Fairbanks rest under palm trees and California sunshine. The cemetery sits in the shadow of the Paramount Pictures water tower, a reminder that even in death, Hollywood never lets its stars escape the industry that made them. 10,000 people attend. The cemetery can't hold them all. They spill out onto Santa Monica Boulevard, blocking traffic, carrying signs, wearing black. Some are studio employees. Some are actors whose careers Julian launched. Many are just fans, people who loved his movies, who saw him as a symbol of American success. A stage has been erected near the reflecting pool where the funeral service will be held. Television cameras are positioned strategically, ensuring that every network can broadcast this moment live. This isn't just a funeral, it's theater, and Antonius knows exactly what role he needs to play. The casket is bronze and impossibly expensive, covered in white roses and lily. It sits on a platform draped in black velvet. Enlarged photographs of Julian Cross through the years surrounded Julian as a young director with his first Academy Award. Julian on set with actors, Julian shaking hands with presidents, Julian at the height of his power and glory. Calpurnia Cross sits in the front row, veiled and silent, her grief a private thing that the cameras can't penetrate. She hasn't spoken publicly since the murder. She hasn't left the mansion. She exists now in a state of shock, replaying that last morning, wondering if she could have stopped him, knowing she couldn't have. Marcus Brutus and the other conspirators watch from a distance, standing on a hill overlooking the ceremony. They weren't invited, but they came anyway. They need to witness this, to face the consequences of their actions. Look at them, Casca mutters, gesturing at the massive crowd. Mourning a tyrant like he was a saint. They don't understand yet, Brutus says quietly. Once Antonius speaks, once he explains what Julian had become, they'll see we did the right thing. Cassius lights a cigarette, his hand still shaking, despite 3 days having passed. None of them have slept much. The nightmares are constant. Julian's face, the blood, the look in his eyes when Brutus struck. I don't think Antonius is going to explain anything that helps us. He promised, Brutus insists. He agreed to let me speak first, to present our case. Then he'll speak. Then the people will decide. You're naive, Cassius says, smoke curling from his lips. Antonius is planning something. I can feel it. The ceremony begins at 2 o'clock under a cloudless sky. A string quartet plays somber music, the notes drifting across the cemetery like ghosts. A priest delivers generic platitudes about loss and legacy, words that could apply to anyone that mean nothing. Then Marcus Antonius takes the stage. He's dressed entirely in black suit, black shirt, black tie, black sunglasses hiding his eyes. He looks like a man carved from grief and rage. The crowd falls silent, 10,000 people holding their breath. Thank you all for coming, Antonius says into the microphone, his voice amplified across the cemetery and broadcast to millions watching on television. Before we proceed, there's someone who wants to speak. Marcus Brutus, one of the men who killed Julian Cross, has asked to address you. I've agreed to let him because I believe in democracy and free speech, and giving everyone a chance to be heard. Unlike some people, the crowd murmurs an angry sound like distant thunder. Antonius steps aside, gesturing to the stage with mock courtesy, where S climbs the steps slowly, feeling 10,000 pairs of eyes on him. He reaches the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces, some curious, some hostile, some waiting to be convinced. He clears his throat. "People of Hollywood," Brutus begins, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "I come before you not to celebrate Julian Cross's death, but to explain why it was necessary. I loved Julian. Many of you know this. He was my mentor, my friend, my second father. But I loved something more than Julian Cross. I loved the idea of Hollywood as a free and open marketplace of ideas, where any filmmaker with talent and vision could succeed. A few people in the crowd nod. Most remained stone-faced. Julian Cross was becoming a tyrant," Brutus continues. "His Titan initiative would have given him total control over film production, distribution, and exhibition in America. No competition, no alternatives, no freedom. He would have decided what stories got told, what voices got heard, what dreams got manufactured. That's not a film industry. That's a dictatorship. We acted not out of jealousy or ambition, but out of love for cinema itself. We sacrificed our friend to save our art form. We became murderers so that Hollywood could remain free. I know this is hard to understand. I know you loved him. So did I. But sometimes love requires terrible choices. Sometimes freedom requires sacrifice." Brutus pauses, searching the crowd for understanding. "I ask you to judge us not by the blood on our hands, but by the future we've preserved. A Hollywood where independent voices can still be heard, where new talents can emerge without bowing to a single master, where democracy, not dictatorship, determines what appears on America's screens." He steps back from the microphone, and there's scattered applause, maybe 100 people out of 10,000. It's not the response he hoped for, but it's something. He's made his case. Now they can judge fairly. Brutus descends the stage, and Marcus Antonius ascends. He removes his sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes, and stares out at the crowd with an expression of profound grief. He doesn't speak immediately. He lets the silence build, lets the tension grow, lets everyone lean forward in anticipation. When he finally speaks, his voice cracks with emotion. "Friends, colleagues, dreamers," Antonius begins, "I come to bury Julian Cross, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often buried with their bones. So let it be with Julian." He gestures toward Brutus and the conspirators on the hill. Marcus Brutus says Julian was ambitious, that he wanted to become a tyrant, and Brutus is an honorable man. They're all honorable men, so I'm here to speak at their permission, at their mercy, because they're so very honorable. The sarcasm drips like acid. The crowd senses where this is going. "Julian Cross was my friend," Antonius continues, his voice strengthening. "He was faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Julian brought home the Palme d'Or, bringing glory to American cinema. Did this seem ambitious? When struggling filmmakers needed help, Julian provided funding, equipment, advice. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man." People in the crowd begin to murmur agreement. The tide is shifting. I'm not here to disprove what Brutus says. I'm just here to speak what I know. You all loved Julian once, not without cause. What cause then keeps you from mourning him now? O judgment, you have fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Antonius pulls a document from his jacket, Julian's will, several pages bound in leather. He holds it up for the cameras, for the crowd, for history. Bear with me. My heart is in that coffin there with Julian, and I must pause till it come back to me. He wipes his eyes. Women in the crowd are crying now. Men clench their fists. The emotional manipulation is masterful, operatic, perfect. You want to know what Julian Cross really was? Antonius shouts suddenly, his grief transforming into righteous anger. Read his will. He left money for film scholarships. He donated his private collection of classic films to public archives. He established funds for retired studio workers who have no pensions. This was the tyrant Marcus Brutus killed. The crowd erupts in angry shouts. People surge toward the hill where the conspirators stand. But Brutus is an honorable man. Antonius roars over the chaos. Antonius isn't finished. He holds up the will again, waving it like a flag, like a weapon, like proof of everything the conspirators destroyed. Shall I read you what else is in here? Julian Cross left instructions that Titan Studios should establish a foundation for independent filmmakers. $20 million to fund projects by new voices, minority voices, women, directors. The very people Brutus claimed Julian wanted to silence. The crowd roars with anger and betrayal. They've been told one story by the conspirators, shown another by the evidence. He left his personal film library to UCLA so film students could study for free. He endowed a wing at the motion picture home for aging actors who have nowhere else to go. He donated his estate, this mansion you all read about in the newspapers, to be turned into a museum of cinema history, open to the public forever. Antonius's voice breaks again, genuine emotion mixing with calculated performance. This was the man they butchered. This was the tyrant who cared so much about Hollywood's future that he tried to protect it from corporate raiders and soulless conglomerates. And they killed him? They stabbed him 23 times and called it liberation. People in the crowd are screaming now. Some rush toward the stage. Some head toward the hill where the conspirators stand, their faces pale with dawning realization that they've lost control of the narrative. Look at them, Antonius points accusingly, standing there in their expensive suits, their hands still stained with an innocent man's blood. They talk about freedom while they committed murder. They speak of democracy while they assassinated the most democratically successful filmmaker in history. Julian Cross won 7 Academy Awards, not through monopoly, but through talent, through vision, through the very artistic freedom they claim to defend. A bottle sails through the air, thrown from the crowd, shattering on the steps near where Brutus and Cassius stand. Then another, then stones. The mob is forming, coalescing, finding its rage. If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. Antonius continues, his voice rising to a crescendo. You all know this suit. I remember the first time Julian wore it. It was at the Academy Awards, the night he won Best Director for the 3rd time. Look, in this place ran Cassius's knife through. See what a rent the envious Casca made. Through this the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, and as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Julian followed it. He's describing things he didn't witness, creating theater from tragedy, transforming history into mythology in real time. This was the most unkindest cut of all, Antonius shouts. For when the noble Julian saw him stab, ingratitude, more strong than traitor's arms, quite vanquished him. Then burst his mighty heart, and covering his face, great Julian fell. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen! Then you and I and all of us fell down, while bloody treason flourished over us. The crowd has become a mob, has become a riot, has become a force of nature that cannot be reasoned with or controlled. They surge toward the hill like a wave of righteous vengeance. We have to go, Cassius says urgently, grabbing Brutus's arm. Now, before they tear us apart. But Brutus stands frozen, watching Antonius orchestrate their destruction, understanding too late that they've been outmaneuvered. They killed Julian Cross, but Marcus Antonius is killing their reputations, their justifications, their futures. "Marcus, move!" Casca shouts, already running toward the cars parked on the street. A rock hits Brutus in the shoulder. Then someone from the crowd, a young man with long hair and a beard, wearing a denim jacket, breaks through and lunges at Cinna, the screenwriter. "You killed him. You killed Julian Cross." The man screams, swinging wild punches. "I'm Cinna the poet." The man being attacked shouts in terror. "Wrong, Cinna. I write poetry, not screenplays. I had nothing to do with, but the mob doesn't care about details, about accuracy, about innocence. They have names and rage, and that's enough." 3 more people pile onto the wrong Cinna, beating him savagely, while he screams about mistaken identity. "Run!" Brutus finally shouts to his fellow conspirators, and they scatter like birds flushed from cover, running through the cemetery, dodging tombstones and mourners pursued by an angry mob that wants blood for blood. Brutus reaches his car, a modest Volvo sedan, and fumbles with his keys while the crowd closes in. Bottles shatter against the windows. Fists pound on the hood. Someone tries to open the driver's door, but Brutus locks it just in time. The engine starts, and he floors the accelerator, scattering people, hearing the thump of bodies against metal, not caring, just surviving. In his rearview mirror, he sees smoke rising. The mob has set something on fire, maybe a car, maybe the stage, maybe their own rage given physical form. The funeral has become a riot. The city of dreams has become a war zone. And through it all, on the stage by the bronze casket, Marcus Antonius stands with his arms raised like a conductor before an orchestra, orchestrating chaos, conducting vengeance, transforming grief into a weapon that will hunt the conspirators to the ends of the earth. "Now let it work," Antonius says quietly to himself, watching the destruction spread. "Mischief, thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt." He's unleashed something that cannot be controlled, something that will consume guilty and innocent alike, something that will burn through Hollywood until only ashes remain. The funeral for Julian Cross has ended. The war for his legacy has just begun.
Los Angeles burns. Not literally, not entirely, but the city feels aflame with rage and division. The riots that started at Julian Cross's funeral spread through Hollywood like contagion. Storefronts along Hollywood Boulevard have their windows smashed. The Titan Studios gates are vandalized with spray paint red letters spelling "Murderers, Injustice for Julian." Police in riot gear stand guard outside the homes of the conspirators, protecting them from mobs while simultaneously investigating them for murder. The district attorney drops the criminal charges 3 days later. The evidence is clear: 7 men killed Julian Cross in premeditated fashion, but the political pressure is too intense, too complicated. Half of Hollywood considers them heroes. The other half wants them hanged. The DA decides that prosecuting becomes impossible in this climate. He calls it a matter best left to civil courts, in the court of public opinion. But the court of public opinion has already rendered its verdict, and that verdict is chaos. 2 weeks after the assassination, Marcus Brutus sits alone in a cheap motel room in Bakersfield, 2 hours north of Los Angeles. He's grown a beard to disguise himself. He wears a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He can't return to his apartment. There are death threats daily. Protesters camped outside. Portia has gone to stay with her sister in San Francisco, somewhere safe, somewhere the madness hasn't reached. The motel room is depressing in its anonymity. Brown carpet worn thin by decades of transient feet. Floral wallpaper peeling at the corners. A television with rabbit ear antennas sitting on a particle board dresser. A bed that sags in the middle. Sheets that smell of industrial detergent and strangers' dreams. Brutus watches the news obsessively, flipping between channels, seeing his face on every station. The media has split into camps. Some journalists defend the conspirators, writing think pieces about corporate tyranny and the need for radical action. Others condemn them, calling for vigilante justice since the legal system has failed. Marcus Antonius is everywhere. He's given 17 interviews in 2 weeks. He's on talk shows, news programs, radio broadcasts. He's become the face of Julian Cross's legacy, the keeper of the flame, the voice of vengeance dressed in grief. And he's brilliant at it. Julian Cross was murdered by jealous rivals who couldn't compete with his genius, Antonius says on The Tonight Show, sitting across from Johnny Carson while millions watch. They wrap their greed in rhetoric about freedom, but the truth is simple. They wanted what he had, so they took it. With knives, the audience applauds. Carson nods sympathetically. Public opinion shifts another degree toward the conspirators' destruction. But Antonius isn't just fighting a propaganda war. He's consolidating power. In the vacuum left by Julian's death, someone needs to run Titan Studios. The board, traumatized and directionless, turns to the one person who seems to have clarity and purpose, Marcus Antonius. He's named interim president of Titan Studios. He moves into Julian's office, sits behind Julian's desk, sleeps in Julian's chair. He begins implementing many of Julian's plans, the very plans the conspirators killed him to prevent. The irony is not lost on anyone. Antonius also forms an alliance with Octavius Cross, Julian's 28-year-old nephew who inherits the vast personal fortune. Octavius is young, ambitious, calculating. He has his uncle's sharp features and sharper mind, but none of the charisma, none of the warmth. He's all edges and angles, a knife disguised as a man. Together, Antonius and Octavius create a partnership. They control the studio and the money. They control the narrative and the network. And they have one clear goal: destroy the conspirators completely. The phone in Brutus's motel room rings, startling him from his news-induced trance. Only 3 people have this number. He picks up carefully. Marcus, it's Cassius. Cassius sounds terrible, voice hoarse, breathing ragged. The sound of a man coming apart at the seams. Where are you? Brutus asks. Nevada, some shithole town near the border. Marcus, it's falling apart. Everything we fought for, everything we sacrificed for, it's all burning down. I know, Brutus says quietly. Ligarius is dead. Cassius continues. His cancer finally took him. Or maybe it was the guilt. I don't know anymore. Casca's in hiding somewhere in Mexico. Cinna hasn't been seen in a week. Decius called me yesterday, drunk, talking about suicide. We're scattered, broken, hunted. We knew there would be consequences, Brutus says. But the words sound hollow even to himself. Consequences? Cassius laughs bitterly. Marcus, Antonius has taken over everything Julian wanted to control. He and Octavius are doing exactly what we killed Julian to prevent. We didn't stop tyranny. We just changed the tyrant's name. Brutus closes his eyes, feeling the weight of that truth settle on his chest like a gravestone. There's more, Cassius says. Antonius and Octavius are coming for us. Not legally, the courts won't touch this. But they're sending people, professionals. I heard rumors. They want us dead, Marcus, all of us. And they have the money and the power to make it happen. Then we run, Brutus says. Where? Cassius asks. How far? They own Hollywood. They control the narrative. Everywhere we go, people recognize us from television. Half want to kill us, half want to shake our hands, but everyone knows our faces. There's nowhere to run. Brutus stands, walking to the motel window. Outside, Bakersfield stretches flat and brown under the brutal California sun. Oil derricks pump rhythmically in the distance like mechanical birds drinking from the earth. This is not Hollywood. This is not the city of dreams. This is reality, harsh and unforgiving. Then we make a stand, Brutus says finally. We meet them. We face them. We force a confrontation and end this one way or another. You mean fight? Cassius asks. Against Antonius and Octavius, they have money, security, an army of loyalists. We have the truth, Brutus says. The truth? Cassius's laugh is sharp as broken glass. Marcus, the truth doesn't matter anymore. Don't you see? We told the truth at the funeral, and Antonius buried it under emotion and theater. Truth is whatever people want to believe. And right now, they want to believe we're villains. Then we die as villains, Brutus says quietly. But at least we die on our feet, not running like cowards. There's a long silence on the phone. Finally, Cassius sighs. Where do we meet?
They gather at an abandoned movie ranch in the Mojave Desert, 3 hours northeast of Los Angeles. The place was once used for filming westerns in the 1950s false front saloons, a dusty main street, a church with no back wall. Now it's a ghost town in more ways than one, slowly being reclaimed by sand and wind and time. Tumbleweeds blow down the empty street. The wood is weathered gray. Shadows pool in doorways like spilled ink. Marcus Brutus arrives first, driving his Volvo with Nevada plates he stole from a junkyard. Then Cassius in a battered pickup truck. Casca crosses the border from Mexico looking haunted, 20 pounds lighter, eyes like burned-out houses. Decius shows up drunk, still wearing a stained tuxedo from some party he attended in another lifetime. Trebonius and Metellus Kingbear arrive together, having found each other in Las Vegas, both looking like refugees from their own lives. They're all that's left. 7 men who killed a king and discovered that regicide doesn't end tyranny. It just creates a power vacuum that something worse rushes in to fill. They meet inside the saloon set, sitting on props that were once furniture, drinking whiskey from a bottle Casca brought, trying to figure out what to do next. The late afternoon sun slants through gaps in the walls, creating bars of light and shadow. Antonius has hired hunters, Metellus says, cutting straight to business. Ex-military types, the kind who can make deaths look like accidents. 2 of my friends from the industry people who defended us publicly, they're dead. Car crash, gas leak, both in the same week. He's cleaning house, Trebonius adds. Not just us. Anyone associated with us, anyone who might carry our message forward. He's erasing us from history. So what's the plan? Casca asks, looking at Brutus. Even now, even broken and hunted, they still look to Brutus for leadership. We force a meeting, Brutus says. We call Antonius, tell him we want to negotiate. End this before more people die. Maybe we can find some kind of peace. Peace? Cassius laughs harshly, taking a long pull from the whiskey bottle. There's no peace with men like Antonius. We killed his best friend, Marcus. He wants our blood, and he won't stop until he has it. Then what do you suggest? Brutus asks, feeling his patience fray. We keep running? We hide forever? We wait for them to pick us off one by one? I suggest we accept reality, Cassius says, standing, his voice rising. We made a mistake. A catastrophic, unforgivable mistake. We killed the wrong man for the right reasons, and now we're paying the price. Julian was becoming a tyrant, Brutus insists. Was he? Cassius shouts. Or did we just convince ourselves he was because we were jealous, because we wanted what he had? I've been asking myself that question for 2 weeks, Marcus, and I don't like the answer I keep finding. The others shift uncomfortably. These are thoughts they've all had in the dark hours, doubts that gnaw at the foundations of their justifications. We did what we believed was right, Brutus says, but his voice lacks conviction. We did what I convinced you was right, Cassius corrects bitterly. I saw your doubt. I saw your loyalty to Julian, and I manipulated it. I fed you information, shaped your perceptions, pushed you toward murder because I wanted Julian gone, and you trusted me. Brutus stares at Cassius, seeing him clearly for the first time. You used me. I used all of you, Cassius admits, gesturing at the others. I wrapped my ambition in rhetoric about freedom and art, and you believed it, because you wanted to believe it, because it made you feel noble. But the truth is uglier. I wanted Julian dead because I was tired of living in his shadow. Everything else was just justification. The confession hangs in the dusty air like gunsmoke. No one speaks. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the loose boards, creating an eerie whistling sound like the desert itself is lamenting. Then we did this for nothing, Brutus says quietly, still clutching his whiskey bottle like a life preserver. We murdered a man, destroyed our careers, became fugitives. For nothing. Not for nothing, Brutus says, though he's not sure he believes it anymore. We acted on principle. Maybe we were wrong, maybe we were misled, but we acted because we believed Hollywood needed saving. Hollywood didn't need saving, Cassius says, his voice flat and dead. We just needed someone to blame for our own inadequacies. Julian Cross was successful, powerful, visionary, and we were less than that. So we killed him and called it liberation. The sun sinks lower, painting the false front buildings in shades of orange and red that look disturbingly like blood. In the distance they hear engines, multiple vehicles, approaching fast across the desert hardpan. Cassius walks to the window, peering out through gaps in the weathered boards. They're here. Antonius found us. How? Metellus asks, panic creeping into his voice. Does it matter? Cassius says wearily. Money, connections, resources. They have everything we don't. Brutus joins him at the window. He counts 5 vehicles, black SUVs, with tinted windows, kicking up rooster tails of dust as they approach the movie ranch. They spread out in a tactical formation, surrounding the town, cutting off escape routes. We could surrender, Trebonius suggests. Make a deal. There are no deals, Cassius says. Only endings. The SUVs stop, engines idling, doors open. Men emerge, 10 of them, maybe 15, wearing dark suits and darker sunglasses, moving with military precision. And then, from the center vehicle, Marcus Antonius steps out. He's dressed casually to day jeans, a black t-shirt, aviator sunglasses. He looks relaxed, confident, like a man who knows he's already won. Beside him, Octavius Cross emerges, younger, sharper, hungrier. Antonius pulls out a megaphone, his amplified voice echoing across the empty movie set. Marcus Brutus, I know you're in there. Come out and let's end this. Brutus walks out alone, stepping through the saloon's swinging doors into the blood-red sunset. The wind whips his hair, pulls at his jacket. He's lost weight these past weeks, and his clothes hang loose on his frame. His beard is unkempt. His eyes are hollow. He looks like a man who's already dead, just waiting for his body to catch up with his soul. Marcus Antonius, Brutus calls out, his voice carrying across the empty space between them. You've won. Julian's empire is yours. His legacy is yours. His revenge is yours. What more do you want? Antonius removes his sunglasses, and Brutus can see his eyes even from 50 feet away, not angry, not hateful, just tired. They're both tired. I want you to understand, Antonius says, lowering the megaphone, speaking in his natural voice that somehow carries farther than the amplification. I want you to know what you did. You killed the greatest filmmaker of our generation because you convinced yourself it was noble. You murdered your friend and called it sacrifice. And for what? Hollywood isn't freer. Cinema isn't better. You didn't save anything, Marcus. You just destroyed. I know, Brutus says, and the admission costs him everything. I know what I did. I know what I am. Behind Brutus, the other conspirators emerge one by one from the saloon. Cassius, Casca, Decius, Metellus, Trebonius. They stand together for the last time, a ragged line of broken men facing their judgment. Octavius steps forward, his young face hard as stone. My uncle left me everything his fortune, his name, his legacy. But he also left me this, a list of everyone who betrayed him. Every name is on that list, and I intend to honor his memory by removing every name from existence. Then do it, Cassius says, stepping forward beside Brutus. We're not running anymore. We're done running. If you want blood, take it. But know that we acted on principle, even if that principle was flawed. We weren't cowards. We weren't mercenaries. We were men who made a terrible mistake while trying to do something good. Antonius shakes his head slowly. You still don't get it. This isn't about revenge. This is about order. Hollywood almost tore itself apart over what you did. The riot, the divisions, the chaos, all of it, because you 7 men decided you knew better than everyone else. You appointed yourselves judge, jury, and executioner. And you can't be allowed to exist because your existence is a constant reminder that sometimes murderers go unpunished. One of Antonius's men, a large operative with a shaved head and dead eyes, draws a gun. Then another. Then all of them. 15 pistols aimed at 7 unarmed men standing in front of a fake saloon in a desert that doesn't care who lives or dies. Wait, Brutus says, holding up his hand. Don't make them do this. Don't make them carry murder on their consciences. We'll do it ourselves. Give us that much dignity. Antonius considers for a long moment. Then he nods. 1 hour, then we come in. If you're still alive, my men finish it. The armed men lower their weapons, but don't holster them. They form a perimeter around the movie ranch, waiting, watching. Brutus turns and walks back into the saloon. The others follow. The sunset deepens to purple, to indigo, to black. Stars emerge in the desert sky, cold and distant and indifferent. Inside, by the light of a single kerosene lamp, the conspirators face their ends. Casca goes first. He has a small pistol he kept hidden, insurance against capture. He sits in a chair, puts the barrel in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. The sound is deafening in the enclosed space, final and irreversible. Decius uses his belt and a ceiling beam, climbing onto a table, stepping off into oblivion. His death is slower, uglier, but no less certain. Metellus and Trebonius share the last of the whiskey, then walk out the back of the saloon into the desert, heading deeper into the darkness. 2 shots ring out 10 minutes later. They chose stars over ceilings, open sky over enclosed spaces. That leaves Brutus and Cassius alone. I'm sorry, Cassius says, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I destroyed you. I destroyed all of us, because I was jealous of a better man. We destroyed ourselves, Brutus says gently. You manipulated what I chose. I could have said no. I could have walked away. But I didn't, because part of me wanted it too. Part of me wanted Julian gone. I can blame you, but that doesn't make me innocent. Cassius nods, then picks up Casca's fallen pistol. He hands it to Brutus. You first, I can't. I need to see you go before I can do it myself. I need to know you're free. Brutus takes the gun. It's still warm from Casca's shot. He holds it, feeling its weight, thinking about Portia, about Julian, about the choices that led him here. Tell me, Brutus says, in all your ambition, in all your jealousy, did you ever really believe Julian was becoming a tyrant? Or was that just a story we told ourselves? Cassius closes his eyes. I don't know anymore. Maybe he was. Maybe we made him into one because we needed him to be. Truth and perception, they blur together in Hollywood. Everything's a story. Everything's a performance. What a stage we've built, Brutus says quietly. What a tragedy we've written. He places the gun against his temple. He thinks of Portia one last time. Hopes she understand. Hopes she forgive him. Julian, Brutus whispers, I did this for you. For the you that you used to be. Caesar, now be still. I killed not thee with half so good a will. The shot echoes across the desert like thunder. Cassius stands alone for a moment, looking at his friend's body, at the ruins of their conspiracy. Then he picks up the gun with shaking hands and follows Brutus into darkness. Outside, Antonius hears the shots. He checks his watch. 43 minutes. He nods to Octavius, and they walk together into the saloon, stepping over bodies, surveying the carnage. Is it finished? Octavius asks. It's finished, Antonius confirms. He kneels beside Brutus, closing his eyes with gentle fingers, the same gesture Brutus once performed for Julian. This was the noblest romang of them all. All the conspirators except him did what they did in envy of great Caesar. Only he, in honest thought and common good to all, made one of them. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man, yet still a murderer, Octavius says coldly. Yes, Antonius agrees, standing, still a murderer, but a tragic one. He killed for what he believed was right, and it destroyed him. That's worth something. That's worth remembering. They walk out together into the night, leaving the dead to the desert, returning to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to the empire they now rule together. The Titan initiative will proceed. Control will be consolidated. Hollywood will continue its eternal business of manufacturing dreams and selling them to a public that can never get enough. And in time, the story of Julian Cross and Marcus Brutus will become legend, will become mythology, will become another story that Hollywood tells about itself, a cautionary tale about ambition, betrayal, and the price of power. The desert wind blows through the abandoned movie ranch, carrying away the last echoes of gunshots, erasing footprints, covering blood with sand. By morning, it will be as if nothing happened here at all, just another scene in the endless movie that is Hollywood, where everyone plays a role, where tragedy and comedy blur together, where the only thing that matters is the story you tell. Curtain falls. Credits roll. The audience files out, debating what they've seen, what it meant, whether anyone was right or everyone was wrong. The lights come up on an empty theater. The projector stops spinning. The dream factory closes its doors. Until tomorrow, when it all begins again.